Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. I'm so excited and very honoured actually to have today's guest join me. Jim Beach is a nationally syndicated radio host. His show, School for Startups, appears on 100 stations across America. Now, what podcast host doesn't dream of those sorts of stats? He started his first business at 23 years old and grew it to 600 employees across 89 locations. This man knows a thing or two about starting up a business and making it successful. His first book was published by McGraw Hill and became a bestseller with 130 five-star reviews. Wow. His newest book, his fifth, is called The Real Environmentalist and argues that entrepreneurs are already solving the climate change problem. This is a cause very close to my heart because there's a lot of people talking about climate change and all sorts of things, and I think it can be overwhelming for people when actually we can do very pragmatic and practical things, and that's what we're going to dive into later in our conversation. But first, let me welcome you, Jim.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure. School for Startups, obviously, what a success story. You know, not only the book, but also the radio show that is still going, which tells me a couple of things. It says that clearly thousands of business people resonate with the content that you're providing. So I'm wondering if you can tell our audience a little bit more about what made you write the book in the first place and then decide, actually, we need a school as well.
Well, thank you for having me. The book, I lost a bet, and so I had to do the book. And that's honestly where it started. I was teaching graduate school entrepreneurship, and I said, this entrepreneurship stuff's not that hard. And the class was like, no, we hear it's pretty hard. And I was like, not that hard. No, they think it's pretty hard. And I bet my class that I could start a business that semester and get it cash flow positive that semester, repay all my startup capital that semester, and they got to choose the country and the industry that I would start the business in. And I won that bet 12 semesters in a row. And one of the Atlanta newspaper people heard about that and said that should be a book. And I said, I'll make you a bet. If you can find a publisher, I'll write the book. Well, within 1 week, and this is unheard of, within 1 week we had a contract with McGraw Hill, one of the most prestigious people or publishers out there. And it was because the value proposition was so clear. The thesis of the book is that entrepreneurship has nothing to do with creativity, risk, or passion. And when you get rid of those three things, it's really easy. And so I wrote the book. It did very well. And I was out doing radio interviews and podcasts to promote the book. And a lot of people said, wow, you're not bad at this. You should have your own show. And so I started my own show about 13 years ago. And it was a podcast for a long time. And eventually I learned how to get on the radio. And it's a system just like anything else that entrepreneurs do. And so once you've done it once, you can do it twice. And we've done it 100 times now and are growing about a station or two a week, every week. And all promoting that simple idea that entrepreneurship isn't necessarily, it can be, but it doesn't have to have creativity. It doesn't have to have passion or much risk. So the first business that you mentioned that I started that business for $400. And within $400, I knew it was going to be successful. And in the end, we spent under $5,000 to get it up and running. And it made about $1,000 profit in the first year. And then we were able to grow and replicate. And the business was 100% a copy of an existing business, our number one competitor. I did not steal any copyrights, trademarks, or patents, but I changed it enough so that it was legal and moral. And we did it better than them. They had locations that you've never heard of. My locations were at Stanford, MIT, Georgetown, UCLA, Sorbonne, Cambridge, Oxford, the most prestigious locations in the world. And they were doing theirs out of shopping centers. And so obviously we were better. And we grew tremendously and put them out of business, of course, and grew the business that way. So there was zero creativity in it, zero risk, because I only spent $400, and then money started coming in, and I already had profit off of that $400. And I didn't realize that I had passion for it until several years into the business. I discovered I actually like this and developed a passion for it. And so that changed my view on entrepreneurship, and it makes it so different. It takes all the scariness out of it. If I say, let's spend $200 and see if the ad resonates, let's place a $200 ad and see what happens. That's not that risky. People will do that. Well, we got 12 customers already. I'll spend $500 more now. And so when you do that, when you start very small, and we started very small, we only did $56,000 our first year, but we made enough money to go to the second year. And the second year we made $256,000. And the third year we made $2.5 million. So that's sort of the basis of everything.
Yes, I can see that there's a system behind what you do, and your initial approach is really about, testing a system, and then once you find that it's successful, then you replicate that system and expand or multiply that system. Have I got that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm in. I'm absolutely in, and I love the things that you said. It's got entrepreneurship has nothing to do with creativity, passion, or risk, and you've just proven that with that story there. So, I mean, thousands of people go through school for startups, clearly, and have great success. So what are some of the things that entrepreneurs, or even just business people who don't see themselves as entrepreneurs, they're just wanting to start a business for themselves, what do they do wrong that you can say, hey, stop doing that?
I've had this exact thing happen to me. I meet someone at a restaurant and they hear what I do and they say, I'm starting a business. You should come over to my office. I'll give you a nice shirt with my logo on it. Oh, that's great. What does your business do? I don't know that yet. I haven't decided that yet. We're still working on that, but I already have an office. I already have a secretary, and I already have a shirt with a logo on it, but I don't have any income yet. Well, that's just stupid to me. They've done everything backwards. You want to have, my dream situation, Ingrid, is to have a check made out to a business that does not exist yet. Because then I have to go and create the bank account and get the LLC and make it legal so I can deposit my check somewhere. And if you're really good at this, you have a friend at the bank who knows you well enough that they'll deposit the check before you get the legal paperwork done. And that's when you're really good at it. But that's my dream situation, to have revenue before I have spent all of the build out, before I've created the logo. I don't do any of the things until it's needed. And I don't do an LLC unless I've already proven that I'm going to start that business. So I have several businesses that I'm starting right now that only exist in a website. The website's the only thing that exists. And if I happen to get 2 or 3 customers and it works, then I'll go and create the LLC and make it legal and do all of the steps that I need to do. But I've saved thousands of dollars by not having the LLC done and all of those things. And so I think the number one thing you should do is only do what needs to be done today to prove whether you'll have revenue, whether the customers are going to like it. So everything I do, I start off by talking to potential customers and saying, I have this new business. Do you want to buy from it? So I have one now I'll pitch. I'm publishing a new book, and I've decided not to go with a big name publisher, and I can explain why, but I decided to publish myself. So if I'm going to self-publish, I might as well give that company a name. It's called startuppublishers.com. and there's the publishing company for my new business. Now, I guarantee that I'll publish your book cheaper than anyone else in the world would. And so if you need a publisher, please go to startuppublishers.com and prove my business model works for me.
That is fantastic. I mean, there's an offer you can't refuse. I think that's really important. I mean, my first business, I started with nothing, and it was out of necessity because I needed an income, and it was on, my mum's bed was my desk. I think I hired the laptops that I needed. I even hired a phone. Put a phone line in, and that was it. So we're talking before real, internet was really a thing. There was email and so forth, but it was a very different business landscape, and it was all about cold calling and making things happen. And I had 4 clients before I actually named my business. It was just me doing it.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes necessity is the mother of all invention. I mean, that's a famous saying. But coming back to something that you just said, getting revenue before you do all of the other things, and only do what needs to be done today in order to generate that revenue, and everything else will follow after that. And you kind of testing those businesses in a very real way. Okay, that's amazing. So we've talked about the things that they shouldn't do, like you said, the logoed T-shirt, the office, the secretary, all of the expense that makes it look like you've got a business rather than actually having a business that's generating revenue. What are some of the essentials that startup businesses need to do in order to generate that revenue? You gave one hint away before. You said, I talk to people that could be prospective clients. Now, we live in an age where people are reluctant to have conversations. We live in an age, Jim, where people would rather send an email than pick up the phone and talk to somebody, let alone meet with somebody. They'll choose to have a Teams meeting, arguing that, it's more time efficient. Tell me a little bit about your tips for anyone, regardless of whether you're a startup business or a salesperson who's responsible for generating revenue, for actually generating revenue.
Well, with just about any business, I want to define the customer bucket. Who are my potential customers? And the smaller the bucket, maybe the happier I am, because that means it's easier to get to everyone in that bucket. But say I'm starting my publishing company. All I'm going to do is run free, not even run ads, just put up posts on LinkedIn and other, social media platforms. That's where the customers are. Who's writing books? People on LinkedIn. And so it's zero cost to get the idea out there in front of them. And so I like that idea. When we talk about getting new radio stations, for example, that's a really great business because there's only a bucket of radio stations, and you can get a list of every single one of them. And so because you can do that, you can call every single one of them and say, hey, here's my idea. Are you interested? And so I love it anytime we can define a customer base that's really, really small. And because of that, you can market to them easier. So I've always done that with every business I've been involved with. I had a furniture business one time, a Pakistani furniture business, and I only did 5,000 cards, little 5x7 mailers, and I bought a list of interior decorators and I mailed the cards to interior decorators. That's all I ever did. And we sold out every single thing that we built.
Amazing.
And half of it was sold before we even delivered it, or before it was even finished in the factory, it was sold. And that's amazing. I have sold stuff that I haven't even paid for yet. So there's cash flow loves that situation. So anytime that I can define a customer bucket, I feel like I'm a good place to start.
That's excellent. And it's so, again, these are the things that are really, really straightforward. They're simple things, and people overcomplicate and focus on the things that make zero difference. They might be peacocking, but they're making zero difference. So defining the customer bucket and communicating where your customers are. So you gave a couple of great examples there. So you talked about the publishing business. Well, where are you going to find potential authors that want to publish their books? LinkedIn makes sense. You talked about the furniture business and saying, okay, I'm going to do a distribution model, or they can buy directly from me. I don't need to be selling to every customer or every homeowner. I can just go through interior designers. So how am I going to reach them? I'm going to reach them through a postcard. I mean, those are just two beautiful strategies that you've shared with us today. I love that. Tell me when a startup business moves from that phase into a more substantial business. What's the transition phase, and how do people know that they need, do they need to start doing things differently from your perspective? How do you then scale?
Well, you have to write everything down and create a system for everything. And I think that you're grown up, so to speak, when you can go on vacation and no one will call you on vacation. Yeah. So I went on vacation one time. I went to the same resort where Bill Gates got married, where he had his wedding. And when I checked out, Ingrid, they gave me two bills. They said, here's your bill for your hotel room and your food. And sir, here is your telephone bill. And my telephone bill was bigger than the hotel and the food bill. So what does that teach us? I spent my entire vacation on the phone, and my business was not ready for me to be away.
Right.
2 years later, I went to Greece and Turkey and never heard from my business.
Yeah.
And so I had learned that they were ready. And so it's about writing everything down, and you have to have a system for everything. So my first business was summer camp for kids. We were the world's largest summer camp company. And when you think about that, you need to know where the food is, and you need to know where the kids sleep at night and what they're going to do all day. But then you also have to have someone who knows the quickest route to the hospital.
Right.
That's an easy thing to figure out. Well, in year 2, Ingrid, I had a knock on my door at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I opened the door, and there was a young lady just standing there, obviously freaked out. She had had her first menstrual cycle.
Okay.
So we had to have a first menstrual cycle policy. How do you handle that?
Yeah.
Well, first thing you do is go wake up a woman, get the boy out of the situation, And then you have $50 to take her to the pharmacy and, and teach her what she needs to buy. That was all written down by year 2 for us because we had a written policy for everything.
Yes.
What happens when they drop off the kid, but they haven't paid the bill yet?
Yes.
You go to the airport and pick up a kid, but the parents haven't paid yet. What do you do then? Do you send the kid back? No, you can't. So we had to have a policy for everything. So these are the things that you have to do. Figure out what I'm going to do if I'm running a paving business and the paving machine breaks down in the middle of the day. What is the solution to that problem? So that's what, a good grown-up, mature business has figured out is how to solve the problems.
Yes.
Do you hire customers that are difficult? Do you only go for the 80% of the customers that are easy to deal with and fire the 20%? All of these policies that you develop over time, I was fired by my CPA one time because I found out I was too difficult. I was a difficult client. That really taught me a big lesson. It taught me not to be so difficult with my service providers, but it also taught me that I needed to fire some of my clients and say, well, we're sorry, we're just not interested in serving you. We can't service you. And that's part of growing up as your business and getting mature to the point where you know what your sweet spot is and you don't deviate from it and try not to do the outliers, and the little things. And also, once you get good, you will find that new opportunities present themselves all the time. And so my parents told their friends, Jim's doing really well. He's in 20 locations. And so the next door neighbors called and said, would you take over this restaurant for us? I spent $500,000 building a restaurant for my son and it's losing $1,000 a day. Will you take it over? What does the egotistical person say? Yes, I want a restaurant. Well, I took it over for a week and I realized that was a stupid thing to do and backed off because I don't know how to run a restaurant.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to focus on what you're good at and double down on the narrower niche.
Wow. That's really, really good. I mean, I heard many years ago that business owners needed to commit ego side, and you just talked about that there. And that, I mean, that does sound like, you've been handed an opportunity on a platter, and yet you very quickly realized, hang on a minute, what am I doing? That's not my expertise. This is not where I want to be. I'm going to hand that opportunity back, and just recognizing that. And when you said you got to get narrower and narrower and narrower to the niche, I love that. I think that that's, again, very, very handy for us to remember and keep front of mind.
Yes, you develop a niche. So when we did the furniture was a great business. We took 100-year-old Persian rugs, Killam carpets, beautiful Persian rugs, and cut them up and made that the fabric for the chair. Well, pretty soon someone came to me and said, well, what about leather? Can you do some leather stuff for us? That would have been really easy, pretty close. But we said no, because what we learned was, I don't know where to get leather. I knew how to get Killam carpets. I had developed a system for that. I did not have a system for getting leather. And so I don't know what it would cost me. I have no idea if that's a good expansion route for me or not. So instead of expanding into leather furniture, we expanded into weekend duffel bags made from the remnants from the carpet that we didn't use in the furniture, because it was the same material. It was just laying around in our factory. And so that was an easy expansion because it didn't cost anything. We were actually using leftover materials to create a whole new product line.
Yeah, okay. I mean, again, that just says it all. Jim, what about people listening who always harbour dreams of having their own business, and they love the idea of it, but they're thinking, oh gosh, do I mean, besides coming to School for Startups, which I highly recommend everyone who's listening should do. However, if they're in a job at the moment and they've always been employed, what are some of the things that a budding entrepreneur needs to consider, besides what we've talked about already, which is about creating a customer base and a revenue stream before you actually even maybe have a business name, have a, like you said, I mean, in Australia, it's a PTY Ltd company. What else do they need to do before they realise that that's actually something that I should now leave my job, go and do?
Well, the first thing I want you to do is start smoking cigarettes.
What is that?
So that you, at your job, you can tell the boss, I'm going to go smoke a cigarette outside, and you go outside and you get on the phone and talk on your business.
Right.
Because I don't want you to quit your job until they fire you. Yeah. Keep the job and the insurance and the income as long as you can. Even if you have to go to the boss and say, look, I'm starting a business on the side. It's not going to compete. Is it okay if I come and work from 7 until 3 so that I can go home and work on my business? And if they fire you, then they fire you. But keep the day job as long as possible. That's all part of the risk reduction strategy.
Right.
So do anything you can to keep that job. Now, you have these thousands of ideas going. Stop on one, whatever you think is the best one, and test it for a week or two. Talk to your spouse and say, would you buy this? And then talk to your 10 friends and say, would you buy this? And then post online and say, would you buy this? And find out if you can actually see a marketplace for it. Because again, I'm doing cheap research and finding out if a market exists before I spend money, before I quit my job, and I'm still smoking cigarettes every day. So obviously that's a joke. I don't want anyone to start smoking. But I do want you to take a break every hour and go make a business call outside.
And that's a good rule of thumb too for salespeople and business people, is to continually be on the phone and having those conversations, making that a discipline to continually feed the pipeline. Failure to do that leads to a dry pipeline, and then you can be in all sorts of trouble. And regardless of who you are, I think we've all experienced that, where we've taken our foot off the pedal for a little bit, and then we think, oh gosh,
That's the consultant's dilemma. The consultant always has that problem. They get 3 great projects and they get so busy delivering that they forget to get the 4th project in the pipeline. So yeah, that's a huge, huge problem. I think that you should spend an hour a day marketing, outbound, however you do that, outbound telephone calls or placing ads or, tweeting or any of the other social medias. A good system means an hour a day, even if you're already busy. And if you're too busy, then you should give that job to the intern or somebody like that. I outsource that personally. I have a person in the Philippines and a person in Poland right now. And they have systems that I created for them, and their job is to implement the system each day and give me a report at the end of the day. And so we're getting, I have marketing happening every day, even if I don't actively get involved myself. But that was one of the first things I did, was to create that system. So you have to keep marketing forever, every day. You'll never get to the point where you have to stop marketing.
Yeah. Okay. So marketing every day and creating systems to support that marketing, but also, as you said, doing that outbound every day. Tell me, just before we move on to the Real Environmentalist, which I'm keen to really, dive into. Before we get there, though, what's your advice for, let's just say you've got a business, you've got new people coming on board who might be of a Gen Z generation, who almost have an aversion to using the phone for its actual, truest purpose, which is to actually make a phone call, when that can be the most direct method of creating a new opportunity or getting someone in the pipeline. What would be your advice to those business owners who are thinking, gosh, I need to get this sales team fired up?
Well, I would have never have hired that person in the first place. And I tell you how I do it. I place an ad that says, if you want to apply, please send me your resume with a 3-paragraph cover letter. And in the subject line of the email, I want you to write this phrase. Okay, you're going to get 100 replies. 20 of them won't put the phrase in the email line. So you eliminate those immediately. Amazing. Then you go through the people who did do everything you asked and say, well, this one has 4 paragraphs. You throw those people out. And then the people that are left, you give them another chore, like call me between 4 and 4:30 and sell me. And only 3 of them are going to do that. So you only hire one of those 3. I'm going to create many steps so that they have to jump through a lot of hoops to even interview with me. And by the time that they're interviewing, I already know that they're reliable. I already know that they're diligent. Send them a project to do and say it's due next Friday. Okay, send it to them on Monday. Make the link that goes to the project on Friday not work. It's broken on purpose. So they have to call you or email you and say, the link is broken. The people who email on Thursday that say the link is broken, you don't hire those people. You only hire the people that emailed on Tuesday to say the link is broken.
Right.
And you set up 5 or 6 barriers that they have to overcome. And by the point that they've jumped through all of those barriers, you already know them. You already know that they're diligent. You already know that they read the fine print. I'm going to hire that guy.
Do you know, Jim, there was a time in this country where I think a lot of businesses did those sorts of things. What would you say to people who said to you, yeah, but we're in a talent shortage at the moment. We can't even find warm bodies, let alone these people that are prepared to jump through hoops. What would you say to those people?
Those people are wrong, because there are millions of English fluent college graduates who happen to live in the Philippines looking for jobs right now.
Right.
And so in today's world where almost no one needs to actually be in the office and teleworking is the norm, I'm going to hire someone in the Philippines, and I'm going to pay I'm going to pay a college graduate with an accounting degree $900 a month, and they will be ecstatic to work for you. So we have a shortage maybe in the United States. I don't really know if I believe that. I don't know about Australia, but I know that there are lots of countries around the world where there are not shortages.
Yeah, right.
And I'm going to go hire those people.
Yes. And I think just expanding our thinking, is important, because it is easy to go down the path of, scarcity thinking, whether that's, with regard to resources or with regard to talent. And then rethinking maybe how you do business. Okay, well, if we need people to be face to face, is that the business model that we go after? Or if we're thinking globally, because we can these days, and we've got a global workforce from which to draw, how can I change my business model so that it caters to those people?
And there's one more thing. The last person that I hired out of the Philippines, I asked how much they wanted. They said 900. I said, good, I'm going to pay you 1,200. I pay more than anyone else.
Yes. Yes. So then
I get better people.
That's exactly right.
And my jobs are sexy. I promise that if you stay with me, we'll help you get the American visa. Even if that means we lose you as an employee. I'll help pay for your wedding. I'm paying for Frank's wedding, part of it. I've already told him I'll pay for half of his wedding.
Amazing.
If he's with me 2 years from now.
Okay.
I create sexiness so that people want to work there.
Yes. That's exciting. That's really exciting. Oh, Jim, where have you been all of our lives? Honestly.
Right here in this room.
Well, you're now here, which is so wonderful. And I hope that this is the start of many conversations, because Australia needs this voice. And a big part of the sales revolution philosophy for me, so this is my, as you know, I've been on your podcast, so thank you so much for that, is about businesses giving back to their communities, really seeing their community as a customer, essentially, and being of value to that community. Now, your book, The Real Environmentalist, explores ways in which capitalists are making a difference in real ways. What was the inspiration for the book, and what are a couple of the examples of businesses making an impact for all of the right reasons?
So I had a man on my radio show named Wayne Elliott. He is, in my opinion, a hero in the world. He buys abandoned ships, aircraft carriers, submarines at the end of their useful life and recycles them and makes a living doing that. Otherwise, what happens to the ship? It sits on the sand and rots. And all of that oil and asbestos and all of the chemicals in that ship get dumped into our environment. And I was blown away by this. And then I discovered that he was also the guy that spent $20 million figuring out how to recycle batteries. And he built the first successful battery recycling business and just sold it to BlackRock. Of course, we all know BlackRock, trillion-dollar money managers. There's no one more successful than BlackRock. It's the ultimate badge of success if you sell to them. And I was like, Wayne, we have to write a book about this. And he said, yes, I'll hire you to write the book. And then I came back to him and said, you know what? Who wants to buy a book on one random 50 millionaire? That's a hard sell. Maybe you could sell 100 of those books. So I went back to Wayne and said, what if we took you and made you the figurehead of all of the capitalist entrepreneurs that are out there solving environmental problems? So now the book is not about you. The book is about a bigger movement. It's about capitalism working and solving climate change. Amazing. You are the figurehead for all of these millions of, not millions, tens of thousands of entrepreneurs that are making the world a better place. And so we hear about coral disappearing, the reefs. I've dived on the Great Barrier Reef. One of my best weeks ever was in Cairns, and I just loved it. And the reefs are dying. So I went on Google and typed in reef recycling or reef rebuilding. And I found a guy in the Bahamas who has now figured out how to grow coral reefs 10 times faster than God does. And he goes into resorts and drops a coral reef into the middle of the resort, goes into the Cayman Islands. He's working now and helping to repopulate coral reefs. Then I saw, you know, that big plastic bubble that's floating around in the Pacific Ocean?
Yes.
I researched that and I found a guy who's going out and scooping all that plastic out of the Pacific Ocean and making sneakers and tennis shoes out of it. And I discovered that there is already an entrepreneur that's tackling every single one of the environmental issues.
Wow.
And so I went back to Wayne. I said, Wayne, the book is not about you. The book is about all of you. Now, how many of those can I sell? I can sell thousands of those because now the book is about something we all care about. And I'm taking a controversial stance, and controversy sells books. I'm taking a controversial stance to say the global warming, I don't worry about it anymore. I've quit worrying about it because I met the entrepreneur that is solving the problem. And then we get to attack the people that aren't solving the problem. The governments, the NGOs, the scientists, the academics. The academics argue about who was on the Nobel Prize.
Right.
When Al Gore won the Nobel Prize, the rest of the academics spent 2 years arguing who also got to be on that prize. Whereas the entrepreneurs that I was talking to didn't even know about Al Gore winning, and they were out there solving real problems. The academics are arguing amongst themselves, and the entrepreneurs are solving problems.
Yes.
So,
And that gives, but that's the stuff that gives me hope, because I think for a lot of, like I was on a lunch and learn the other day, and it was with a futurist, and she was talking about some very sad statistics about people's view of the future and their level of agency over it. And it wasn't just about environmental problems, it was just in general. And most people were pessimistic about the future and had the double whammy of feeling like they had zero agency around that. And so books like this one, The Real Environmentalist, really demonstrates, chapter after chapter after chapter, that there are people already out there just getting on with it for all of the right reasons. Yes, they're making a profit out of it. And at the same time, they're solving the issues that, we often look to, the parent figure, the government, that's a whole other conversation, to solve for us, instead of just saying, okay, what's an opportunity what's a problem that I can solve, and how do I go about doing that? And that sounds like that's what this book is all about.
it's an amazingly encouraging story, and it's 100% optimistic because these entrepreneurs are having results. There are companies, and no one knows this. There is a company out of Scandinavia that sucks air in and pumps clean air out. And they're having huge success. Bill Gates just put $1 billion into that company. They are figuring out how to clean the air and make it profitable to do that. They turn it into air conditioning also, and it air conditions skyscrapers. And so I think in the future, we're going to see the top 10 floors of skyscrapers cleaning the environment of the city and keeping that building cold at the same time. And when you have that kind of solution added up with all of the other entrepreneurs who are solving the water and the plastics and the trees and the coral and getting rid of the phosphorus, all of it, I've met them all. There's someone doing every single niche. The problem I had in the book was finding which ones were the best stories to include, because I found more people solving the problem than I could put in one book. And so it's a very optimistic story. And again, it will be controversial because I say take the money away from the academics and give it to the entrepreneurs. Take the money away from the university because they're not producing solutions. They're producing papers. They're not actually producing solutions. and force this, if we give money to a university, force them to have some sort of viable product at the end of that, not a white paper. White papers do not solve problems.
They sure don't, but they justify academics' jobs. Now, if I was a business owner going, oh God, that's so inspiring, that means for me that I can do something too. Let's just say I'm just an ordinary business, okay, and I am looking out there and I'm thinking, I would like to make a real impact instead of virtue signaling or saying, look at me, look at what I'm donating to, but I'm actually not really making a direct impact through the work that I do. What would you suggest for those businesses who might not have millions behind them or investors to support those sorts of activities? How would you suggest that businesses get involved with very real and practical environmental causes where they can make a real impact?
Well, you need to start locally. Go clean the beach that's closest to you. Go get oil off of birds' wings with ivory soap. And the cool part of the book that I haven't mentioned yet is I went into Chat GPT. So the data is Chat GPT data, so you can't argue with me. It's from the AI internet. And said, who are the 10 celebrities that talk the most about the environment? And then I said, now take a totally new question. Who are the 10 celebrities actually doing the most? And I define doing as that is not giving a speech, that is actually going onto the beach and cleaning plastics off the beach. And then I took the two lists and inverted them like this, and that produces who's talking the most and doing the least. And so in the book, we list the 10 biggest environmental hypocrites on earth, famous actors and politicians and academics that talk like they're doing so much and then doing so little. So one of them is Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the biggest hypocrites on earth. He gives a speech at the UN. They gave him a UN medal, and then he flew in his private jet to his private yacht. Private yachts are the single most destructive thing on earth. And who has private yachts? The billionaires. And the billionaires, I found one statistic, one billionaire produces as much waste and pollution as 600,000 homes.
Whoa.
One billionaire, 600,000 homes. And so in the book, we're calling out these 10 biggest hypocrites. Leonardo DiCaprio is one. Some politicians that you've heard of are on the list.
Oh, yeah.
And saying, you're a hypocrite. You're giving a speech. That does not count for anything. You made a documentary. That's what you do anyway. That does not count. Go clean a beach.
Yes. Which would require that they might
Time.
need to get their hand, time.
Getting dirty.
Yes. All of that stuff that, is a little bit inconvenient and actually, might be quiet, Jim. It might not make it to social media. It might not make it to the magazine pages, but it's making a real difference. And that's what you're talking about. And I mean, the definition of a hypocrite is somebody who says one thing and does another.
You're talking about performative environmentalism.
Right.
It's for performance, not for the reality. So look at the number of celebrities that live in Los Angeles and violate the water code. The Kardashians use 100,000 gallons of water a month, more than they are allotted by the city. And they pay the fine every month. Those people do not deserve to be called environmentalists. Those are hypocrites, and they must be called out.
Wow. I mean, that. I don't know what they're using all that water on. I suppose it's to clean all of their toys.
To water their grass. They're watering grass so that they have a green lawn.
Yeah, okay.
It's pure performative environmentalist. And we need to find real environmentalists, like in this book, who are figuring out how to make a living while cleaning up the rivers.
Absolutely love this. Absolutely love this. Gee, I'd love you to come to Australia and find some of those people as well, because I think Australia needs those examples
Well, what we
where
should
we can
do
be
is limit the Chat GPT search to only Australians and come up with the 10 biggest Australian environmental hypocrites.
and maybe the entrepreneurs in Australia too who are really solving some problems, because I have no doubt that there are those people.
Yes, there
And
are.
it would be wonderful to celebrate them. Jim, I hope this is the first of many such conversations. I love your energy. I love your passion. I love your very pragmatic.
I have no
and
passion,
practical
no passion,
approaches.
no passion. You can't start a
Enthusiasm,
business
then.
with passion.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the creative genius who's so passionate. Yeah, no. We're talking here about a man that walks the walk. That isn't full of it. Who pretty much is talking about the stuff that he's done, rather than talking about what other people should do, which I absolutely love. Jim, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, and for a great conversation. I've loved every minute.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.